Hello students, in this video I am going to tell you about the structure and function of plasma membrane. So this is plasma membrane, also known as cell membrane, and this is the outermost covering of the cell in case of animal cells and other microorganism, but in plant cell it is after the cell wall. So, most cellular organelles such as mitochondria, chloroplast, lysosomes, peroxisomes, Golgi apparatus, nucleus, and endoplasmic reticulum are enclosed by the membrane. How many organs I told here? That is mitochondria, chloroplast, lysosomes, peroxisomes, Golgi apparatus, nucleus, and that is endoplasmic reticulum. They all are enclosed by the unit membrane. And the cell surface membrane or plasma membrane is the outer covering of each cell, and it is present in cells of plant, animals, and microorganism, as I told you. So come to the structure. What is the structure? You can see here that there are uh, lipid bilayer and some proteins are floating in this. So you can say plasma membrane is living, thin, delicate, elastic, and selectively permeable membrane. So how many property I told you? That it is thin, elastic, delicate, and most important that it is selectively permeable. So if we see the chemical analysis, it shows that 75% of phospholipid. In addition, the membrane contains some proteins. This is the transport protein channels. This is peripheral protein, or this is also known as extrinsic protein, and this one is integral protein or intrinsic protein. So there are presence of some carbohydrate chain, glycoprotein. This is phospholipid bilayer. These are the cholesterol. It is not written over there. Cholesterol, and then you can say there is structure like head and tail. So this head is hydrophobic polar head, hydrophilic polar head, and hydrophobic polar non-polar tail. Hydrophilic polar head and hydrophobic non-polar tail. Hydrophilic means water loving and hydrophobic means water hating. So in 1972, Singer and Nicholson suggested a model. This is called fluid mosaic model, and to explain the ultrastructure of the plasma membrane. According to them, what he told, that it is made up of bilayer, that is two layer. Bilayer means two layer of phospholipid, two types of protein molecules floated about in the fluid of phospholipid layer. That is intrinsic protein. These are the intrinsic protein which completely covers the lipid layer, and extrinsic protein which occur either on the outer surface or on the inner surface of the lipid membrane. So the fluid mosaic model of the membrane, it is described as a number of protein icebergs. You can see they look like icebergs. So number of protein icebergs floating floating in the sea of lipid. A number of protein icebergs floating in the sea of lipids. I think you all agree with this phrase. There are so many iceberg type structure and it is floating where? In phospholipid. So this model is the most accepted one and it describes the organization and properties of the membrane. So what should be the function of these protein? So these protein do not give strength to the membrane but to serve as enzymes. What is the function of protein present in this? They serves as enzymes. Enzymes are the chemical which, or you can say enzymes are the protein which catalyze any chemical reaction. What it does? It catalyze any chemical reaction. Second, there is presence of transport protein as I shown you. See here, this is transport protein. This is also called as permeases. Remember it. This is also called as permeases. It is used for movement of water, movement of water or soluble ions. Soluble ions. As I told you that the this outer layer is hydrophobic, so there is difficulty in crossing the hydro that water loving substance in this because it is made up of phospholipid. So there are presence of transport protein or permeases which allow the ease movement of water and soluble ions. And the third one is pumps. There are so many pumps present. Detail you will study in class 11th about the pumps. And this is for active transport. Active transport means where the expenditure of energy occur and it is against the concentration gradient. Movement occur against the concentration gradient. And the last one is receptor proteins. Receptor proteins, presence of lipids and protein provides flexibility to the plasma membrane. This property of the flexibility of the plasma membrane helps in endocytosis. Endocytosis. Receptor proteins helps in endocytosis. Endocytosis means to engulf anything or any debris of the cell through plasma membrane. So this is all about their protein structure. First enzyme, then transport protein or permeases, then pumps and receptor proteins. So what is the I told you earlier that it is selectively permeable. So what are the advantages of being selective permeable? So selective permeability of plasma membrane, it ensures that only the useful molecules can enter the cell useful molecule enter the cell. Second, and metabolic intermediates remain within the cell. The metabolic intermediates will remain inside the cell. Are you getting this point? Means the chemical which can be utilized in other metabolic process, it is not going out of the cell, it will remain in the cell. And the third one is secretion and waste. Whatever the debris are present, it should leave the cell. Leave the cell. So selective permeability of the cellular membrane enables the cell to maintain homeostasis, that is constant internal environment, in spite of the changes in outside. Whatever the changes outside occur, the internal environment should remain static. It is not going to change. So what are the substances which generally drawn from the cell? And these include the raw material for metabolism, like food, water, salt, and oxygen. Second, regulatory substances. These are vitamins and hormones. So these are the substances which is drawn in through plasma membrane. And second, the substances which generally of the cell out of the cell, these are drawn in and these goes out of the cell. So uh, obviously the product which is not needed by the uh, body or not needed by the cell, it should be drawn out, and these include the product of metabolism, कौन से product, that is nitrogenous waste, it can harm your body if remain for so long. CO2, secretions such as proteins, proenzymes, hormones, milk, tears, mucus, antibodies, etc. So these are the substances which generally drawn out of the cell, and these include nitrogenous waste, CO2, proteins, proenzyme, hormones, milk, tears, mucus, antibodies, etc. So come to the functions of plasma membrane. So plasma membrane, it allows the entry and exit of some material in the cell. Entry, just like a guard, entry or exit, as any guard in any building does, that it allows or permits the entry and exit of some materials in the cell. Therefore, the plasma membrane is called selectively permeable, as I explained to you here. Then, studies on function of plasma membrane have shown that it performs certain physical activities as well, like diffusion of substances and osmosis. I think you hear these two words first time. Diffusion, I hope you heard it earlier. Diffusion. So, what is diffusion? Some substances like molecules, ions such as CO2, oxygen, water, etc. It can move across the plasma membrane through a process called diffusion. It means diffusion is the movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration. So what I told, like some substances, molecules and ions, and CO2, O2, water, etc. It can move in and out of the membrane through the process known as diffusion. And these substances are very small size, so that they diffuse radially through the phospholipid layer of the plasma membrane. So to understand this, I can show you one activity here. See here, there is a glass tumbler half filled with clean water, and put a few drop of blue ink or any colored fluid in the beaker or tumbler. Though you can do it at your home. What will happen after some time, that ink diffuses into the water gradually until the ink molecules get uniformly distributed in the water. This is a spontaneous movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to its lower concentration. This is the lower concentration, and ultimately you can see here that all the molecules are distributed in the water tumbler. So this is the diffusion. You can also here see here diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the plasma membrane of amoeba, a unicellular organism. So more oxygen in water. So I told you that it movement occur from higher concentration to lower concentration. So here higher concentration present and less O2 in cell, O2 used up in respiration, more CO2 in cell. So here more oxygen present and here less oxygen present, so these movement occur like this. And here more CO2 present and here less CO2 present, so it will diffusion out of a cell, less CO2 in water around the cell. So this is the diffusion process in amoeba. So it is a type of spontaneous movement, and diffusion is faster in the gaseous phase than in liquid and solid. So in next video I am going to explain you about the osmosis.